She just cannot let it go. Claressa Shields, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, the woman who calls herself the GWOT, the woman who is supposed to be the most disciplined mind in women's boxing, is sitting on her phone in August of 2026. More than a year after Papoose first filed those divorce papers, posting subliminal threats about catching women outside, because one interviewer at Streetz Morning Takeover asked her a question she could not answer without her eyes betraying her. And I want you to sit with that for a second, because the story you have been watching about Claressa Shields and Papoose is not the story that is actually happening. The story you have been watching is a boxer defending her love. The story that is actually happening is a woman with an 8-figure Nike-adjacent brand ceiling, a woman who is one clean narrative away from being the female Floyd Mayweather of the marketing world, systematically detonating her own value in real time while a 50-year-old rapper who has been legally married the entire duration of their relationship sits back and lets her take every single hit for both of them. That is what is actually on the table. Not a love story. A career suicide in slow motion, being live-streamed to us through her own Twitter, her own Instagram stories, her own Facebook, and every single podcast she keeps agreeing to sit down for. And the wildest part, the part that made me have to sit down and record this whole video today, is that when we get to the New Jersey court records, and I promise you we are getting to the New Jersey court records, filing fee, transaction ID, docket date, all of it, you are going to understand that the "he filed for divorce for me" line she keeps repeating is not the flex she thinks it is. It is actually the evidence against her. Because the paperwork tells you a story that her mouth refuses to. And when the paperwork and the mouth disagree, the paperwork always wins. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the whole table for you, because I know some of you are just getting caught up, and I do not want anybody lost. Claressa Shields is a two-time Olympic gold medalist out of Flint, Michigan, undisputed across multiple weight classes, one of the most decorated amateur and professional boxers this country has ever produced regardless of gender. On paper, on resume, on the actual sport of boxing, there is almost nothing left for this woman to accomplish that she has not already accomplished. She has publicly stated she wants to be the Beyoncé of boxing. She has publicly stated she is chasing a $20 million Nike-level deal. She has publicly stated she is trying to elevate to a level of celebrity crossover that would make her a household name outside of just combat sports fans. And every single one of those goals, every single one, depends on one thing above her jab, above her footwork, above her power. Every one of them depends on being marketable to corporate America. And corporate America, whether we like it or not, is watching every single move she makes off the ropes. On the other side of the equation you have Papoose, born Shamil Mackey, a New York rapper who has been legally married to Remy Ma, born Reminisce Smith, since 2008. 2 decades of being marketed as the poster couple of black love and hip-hop. Podcasts, reality television, joint interviews, matching chains, the entire brand. And then somewhere around the summer of 2024, everything begins to unravel publicly. Remy Ma outs the relationship her way. Claressa becomes the public face of the fallout, and by May 22nd of 2025, 5:16 p.m., filing fee $325, New Jersey courts, and yes, I have the transaction ID for you, Papoose officially files a divorce complaint. And now here we are, more than a year past that filing, deep into 2026, and that divorce still is not finalized. That is the setup. That is where the powder is sitting. And the match got lit when a co-host at Streetz Morning Takeover looked Claressa dead in her face and asked her, on camera, how much longer she was willing to be in a relationship with somebody's husband. The stakes are not gossip. The stakes are a Nike deal that gets rewritten every single time this woman opens her mouth. The stakes are a legacy that was supposed to be about gold medals and undisputed belts and is now about eye contact and shifty body language. The stakes are cultural, because hip-hop is watching in real time whether a woman who calls herself the greatest of all time can survive the same scrutiny the culture puts on every other woman it labels a side chick. And the systemic stake, the one nobody is talking about, is what happens when a legally married man's career gets to stay untouched while the woman standing next to him absorbs 100% of the reputational damage. That is not an accident. That is the machine. And that is the story I want to walk you through right now. Let me start with the surface level, because there is so much on the record you cannot argue with, and I want to build this brick by brick before we get to the parts that require me to read between the lines. Piece of evidence number 1, the interview itself on Streetz Morning Takeover with Young Jock and the co-hosts. Claressa is sitting there, comfortable, laughing, doing the promo run, and one of the women on the panel calmly asks her how long she is willing to be in a relationship with somebody's husband. The word pause comes out of Claressa's mouth like she is trying to freeze a video game. Pause. Like this is Adam Sandler in Click. Like she has a magical remote and can just stop a real human conversation because she does not like where it is going. And in that single word, pause, you see everything. That is not the response of a woman who has her story straight. That is the response of a woman who was told the questions in advance, was not prepared for the follow-up, and had to buy herself 2 seconds of oxygen. Piece of evidence number 2, her rebuttal in that same interview. She says, and I want to quote this correctly because it matters, that it is not somebody's husband, and that if you are going to call him her husband, you should call her his wife. Which is, I have to be honest with you, one of the most self-defeating lines a person in her position could deliver. Because you cannot in one breath tell us he is nobody's husband and in the next breath tell us that divorces take time and he is still going through the process. Either the man is legally married or he is not. There is no in-between in family court. There is no kind of married. The paperwork either has a judge's signature on it or it does not, and as of the moment we are having this conversation, it does not. Piece of evidence number 3, and this one is the one that broke the internet, the Twitter post that goes up hours after the interview. I'ma be honest with you, I ain't letting nobody else off the hook. Next bitch come playing, I'm going all out. This is a woman who just sat in a chair and was asked a direct question by a professional interviewer and, by her own admission on social media, felt like she let that person off the hook. Which is her way of saying, I lost that exchange. I did not answer the way I wanted to. And now I am going to log onto the app and pretend that I am the aggressor. Piece of evidence number 4, the Facebook post that goes up 8 hours later. I'm exposing the truth from now on. Not letting bitches off the hook no more. Different platform, different day, same festering wound. This is not a woman who moved on. This is a woman who is refreshing the mentions. And piece of evidence number 5, the Instagram story where she reposts the Shade Room clip and writes, quote, I'll just say this. This question was so corny. Papoose is separated and he filed for a divorce. So leave me alone with that husbandish. Lastly, I handled this with composure. God is working on me. She handled it with composure. Composure. This woman is on 3 different social media platforms, on 3 different days, drafting 3 different posts about how she is not letting anybody off the hook, while simultaneously telling us she handled the moment with composure. That is not composure. That is a woman who cannot stop scratching. And I want you to notice something else, because we have to talk about it. When she was in that chair, live, in front of the cameras, her eyes were moving like the tail on that Felix the cat clock. Left, right, up, down, anywhere but locked in on the woman asking the question. I studied a little bit of behavioral analysis in my time. I am not a psychologist. I am not going to pretend to be one, but there is a body of research on truthful recall versus deceptive recall. And one of the most consistent markers researchers point to is the ability to maintain eye contact while telling a story about your own life. When a person is recalling a truth, the words come out with the eyes locked. When a person is constructing a narrative in real time, the eyes drift because the brain is doing 2 jobs at once, remembering and manufacturing. Draw your own conclusions. And oh, do I have more for you? Because if you thought the interview was the only place this thing exploded, wait until I show you what the culture around her has been saying while she was busy posting subliminal threats on 3 separate apps. The insiders are not on her side. The rap wives, the boxing insiders, the women who are usually the first to defend another woman in this scenario, they are gone. And when you see who has said what and when they said it, you are going to understand exactly why the smart money in the industry is no longer betting on this brand recovering. Let me take you into the second layer, the cultural layer, because this is where the real damage lies. First, cultural signal, and this is one people slept on, Remy Ma's own commentary about the situation. Remy has said, on the record, that if the public knew all the details of what actually went on, it would crush people, it would make them cry. She has said she covered for Papoose out of love for years. She has said her image could take the hit and his could not. That is the kind of statement that lands like a boulder into the middle of any narrative Claressa is trying to build. Because Claressa keeps telling us Papoose is a devoted man who filed for her, who chose her, who is separated and processing paperwork. And Remy, the wife of nearly 2 decades, is telling the culture that this man has needed cover his entire adult career. 2 contradictory narratives cannot both be the truth. One of them is the person the culture has known for 20 years. The other is a woman who has been publicly dating him for barely 18 months. You do the math. Second cultural signal, the way the podcast ecosystem has been treating her. The Breakfast Club tried to run interference. Melissa Ford tried to run interference. Big Tigga tried to run interference. Every one of those platforms sat her down, softballed her, and treated the situation like a promotional appearance. And you know what those interviews did for her? Nothing. Because the culture watched them, saw that nobody was asking the real questions, and went right back to talking about her the same way they were talking about her before. Meanwhile, one woman in a co-host chair in Atlanta asked one direct question and detonated more damage to Claressa's brand than every softball interview combined managed to repair. That is how you know the culture is not playing anymore. Third cultural signal, the timeline problem, which honestly deserves its own separate video, and if enough of you type the word timeline in the comments and engage with this video, I will do that breakdown properly. But here is the sketch of it. Claressa keeps saying she met Papoose for the very first time at the Shakur Stevenson fight on July 6th of 2024. She keeps saying they became official in August of 2024. She keeps saying on the record they had been together 6 months at a certain point. Meanwhile, Tony Rich, her fiancé at the time, is posting on August 21st of 2024 that he loves Claressa Shields, that these are precious moments, that she is his baby. He is standing at her fight on July 27th of 2024, putting her robe on her body, calling her baby with heart eyes in his caption. If Papoose was already in the picture by July 6th, if the two of them were talking on the phone every day like she claims they were, why is her fiancé still functioning like a fiancé 3 weeks later? Why is she still accepting a robe from him at her own professional fight? The timeline does not close cleanly. It leaks. And when a timeline leaks, the story it is holding leaks with it. Fourth cultural signal, the AI photo situation. I want to be careful here because I use these tools myself and I understand the temptation. But the pictures she has been posting recently look like GTA renders. They do not look like her. They do not look like Papoose. The filters are so heavy, the AI cleanup is so aggressive, that the man in the photo does not resemble the man we have seen in every other public appearance for the last 20 years. When a couple has to manufacture the visual of themselves being together, that is a red flag the culture picks up on instantly. And the fifth cultural signal, the one I cannot stop laughing at, is the shared jewelry pattern. The winner circle chain, the big one, the one that is the visual symbol of Papoose's brand. You almost never see them both wearing it at the same time. He has it in one photo, she has it in the next photo, he has it in the next photo, she has it in the next photo. This is a couple that reportedly has millions of dollars between them. They cannot afford 2 chains. They have to pass one back and forth like it is a middle school promise ring. Now I know some of you are going to say I am reading too much into it. They can share jewelry if they want. Fair. But when you add the shared chain to the AI photos to the leaking timeline to the podcast ecosystem quietly turning against her to Remy Ma's public commentary about hidden details, you do not have 5 isolated data points. You have 5 data points that all point in the same direction. And when everything points the same way, that is not coincidence. That is a pattern. And when we start talking about the pattern, we have to stop talking about the couple and start talking about the machine that made the couple. And this is where I have to switch gears on you completely. Because up until this point, we have been talking about a relationship. We have been talking about eye contact and Twitter posts and shared jewelry and podcast appearances. That is the entertainment layer. That is the culture layer. But underneath the entertainment layer and the culture layer, there is a business layer. And the business layer is where this entire situation stops being about love and starts being about money, leverage, and who is being used as a shield for whom. So let me put on a different hat for a minute and walk you through what is actually happening structurally. Claressa Shields is at a career inflection point. She is 31 years old. She has said publicly she is nearing the end of her boxing career. She has said publicly she wants a $20 million Nike tier endorsement deal. In the world of women's combat sports endorsements, that number is not unreachable, but it is unforgiving. Deals at that tier are not written to fighters. They are written to brands. And a brand, in the eyes of a corporate marketing department, is a controlled narrative. Ronda Rousey got that deal when her narrative was clean. Serena Williams got that tier of deal when her narrative was clean. Simone Biles got that tier when her narrative was clean. Every athlete who has broken through the 8-figure endorsement ceiling has done it with a brand story a Fortune 500 marketing department could put in a boardroom deck without needing to explain a divorce court in New Jersey. Right now, Claressa Shields does not have that story. She has the boxing resume. She does not have the story. And every single interview she does where the word husband or wife comes up is another data point in a marketing spreadsheet at every brand she is trying to court, and it is being weighed against her. Now, let me take you deeper. The second systemic layer here is the divorce infrastructure itself, and this is the part almost nobody is walking you through correctly. The New Jersey courts filed the initial divorce complaint on May 22nd of 2025 at 5:16 p.m. Filing fee of $325, transaction ID visible, publicly searchable. That was over a year ago. We are now sitting in August of 2026. In the state of New Jersey, I looked this up because it matters, you can absolutely finalize a divorce even if one spouse refuses to sign the paperwork. The court system allows the process to move forward through a default judgment or a contested divorce hearing. One spouse cannot block the divorce by simply withholding a signature. That is not a legal loophole. That is the standard operating procedure of family court in New Jersey. So when Papoose allegedly puts out music and hints that Remy is refusing to sign, and when Claressa allegedly repeats a version of that story in private, the legal reality is that neither person's cooperation is required for a divorce that was filed more than a year ago to have been finalized by now. If Papoose has retained legal counsel, and given the reported $1.5 million net worth range associated with him, he certainly could, that counsel would have advised him about the default judgment path within the first 90 days of filing. Which means one of two things is true. Either the divorce is intentionally being paced, or one of the two parties has interests in the marriage remaining legally intact that neither of them is disclosing publicly. And both of those possibilities have significant implications for the woman standing next to him in public. Third systemic layer, and this is the one that is going to make some of you uncomfortable, the pattern of who takes the hit in this ecosystem. Papoose's public brand, throughout this entire 18-month saga, has remained relatively insulated. He has continued to release music. He has continued to make appearances. His social media commentary has been minimal and carefully worded. Meanwhile, Claressa Shields has been the face of every viral moment, every clapback, every subliminal threat, every eye contact analysis, every timeline debate. She is doing 100% of the reputational labor. He is doing 0%. And in any relationship where one person is absorbing all of the damage and the other person is absorbing none of it, you have to ask a real question. Who does that arrangement benefit? It benefits the person who is not absorbing the damage. And when that same person is the one who is legally still married, the one who has been marketed as a black love figurehead for 2 decades, the one whose ability to keep his existing brand intact depends on the woman standing next to him absorbing every hit, the picture starts to look less like romance and more like a very specific transaction. She takes the fire so his brand can keep breathing. That is not a partnership. That is a shield agreement. And the reason the shield keeps standing there is that the shield does not know she is the shield. She thinks she is the queen. And there is no crueler position in the entire industry than the woman who thinks she is being chosen while she is actually being used. So let me deliver the truth of this whole thing, the piece I have been building toward from the top of the video, because everything I have shown you converges on one single conclusion, and I do not want any confusion about what it is. The reason Claressa Shields cannot sit in a chair and answer a direct question about her relationship without her eyes moving like a metronome is not because interviewers are ambushing her. It is not because the culture is being unfair to her. It is not because women are jealous or because men are misogynistic or because the media is corrupt. The reason she cannot answer the question is because, in my analysis, based on every piece of evidence available to us in the public record, the leaking timeline, the more than 15 months and counting divorce that has not been finalized in a state where either party could have forced completion within 90 days, the shared jewelry, the manufactured AI-heavy photo campaigns, the pattern of Papoose's public brand remaining untouched while hers absorbs the entire cultural cost, the reason she cannot answer the question is that she knows, on some level, that the story she has been sold about this relationship is not the story that is actually being lived. She is dating a legally married man who, more than a year after allegedly filing paperwork, is still legally married. And every time she goes on camera and calls him her hubby, every time she posts a couple photo, every time she threatens another woman on social media, she is not defending love. She is defending a version of events that the public record does not support. That is why the eyes move. That is why the Twitter posts keep coming. That is why the Instagram story goes up 8 hours later and then a Facebook post goes up the next day. Because a person who is at peace with the truth of their own life does not need to reinforce it on 3 platforms in 72 hours. Reinforcement is the tell. And in this case, the reinforcement has been running non-stop for over a year. Now I want to be clear here. This is my analysis. This is my read of the pattern, and I am basing it entirely on publicly reported information, publicly filed court records, publicly available social media, and publicly conducted interviews. But when you line every one of those data points up in sequence, the picture is not close. It is one direction. She is the shield. He is the man being shielded. And the $20 million deal she keeps mentioning she is chasing is not going to survive being the girlfriend in the divorce case that will not close. And here is the part 1 I want to leave you on before we start wrapping up, because I do not want anybody thinking this is a video about a woman failing. This is a video about a system that is designed to make certain women fail on the way to lifting up men who do not deserve the lift. The person who is still winning through all of this is not any of the personalities in the drama. The person who is still winning is the audience that sees through it. The person who is still winning is the culture that refused to accept the softball narrative and asked the real question in the co-host chair on that Atlanta morning show. The person who is still winning is every young woman watching this saga play out in real time and quietly writing down the receipt in her own head. Do not accept a version of events that the paperwork does not support. And that receipt, in the long run, is worth more than any $20 million Nike deal. Because that receipt is protection. Claressa Shields is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. That is not going to change. Her professional record is not going to change. Her legacy inside the ropes is untouchable. But her legacy outside the ropes is being written right now, in real time, on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, by her own hand, and the pen she is using is running out of ink. The right move, and I say this without any joy, is to stop the campaign, stop the subliminals, stop the threats, stop the 8-hour cycle of platform-hopping outrage, and let the paperwork do what the paperwork is supposed to do. If the divorce is real, finalize it. If the love is real, protect it in silence. And if neither is real, admit it and start rebuilding. That is the discipline of an actual champion. Not the mouthpiece. The discipline. And discipline is the one attribute that separates the fighters who become billion-dollar brands from the fighters who become punchlines. She still has time to choose which side of that line she wants to land on. Not much time. But time. And I promise you, this is only the start. Because there are 2 developments in this story that are coming, and neither one is going to be pretty. Development number 1, the timeline video. I mentioned it earlier and I meant it. If enough of you drop the word timeline in the comments and actually engage with this video, I do not want people just typing timeline and leaving. I want the word timeline followed by your take on what we discussed today. I am going to sit down and walk you through, dated post by dated post, exactly how the Tony Rich engagement, the Shakur Stevenson fight, the alleged first meeting, the alleged official start date, and the 6-month claim from her own interviews fit together, or more. Accurately, do not fit together. Development number 2, the divorce docket itself. That case is still open. Every filing that hits that docket is public record. And the moment there is movement, a motion, a scheduling order, a final judgment, I will be on it, breaking down what it means and what it does not mean in plain English, so you do not have to trust anybody else's spin. Subscribe now so you do not miss either of those, because when the next moment lands, it is going to land fast, and the algorithm does not wait for anybody. And before you click away, I want to give you the next video you need to watch, because it connects directly to this one. There is a growing pattern of women in hip-hop who publicly align themselves with legally married men in the last 5 years, and there is a shockingly consistent outcome on the endorsement side for every single one of them. An outcome that no one in the culture has connected into a single through line yet. I put the whole breakdown together. I have the names, I have the deal structures, I have the timelines, and I promise you when you see them side by side you're going to understand exactly why what is happening to Claressa Shields right now is not a personal story. It is a category. Click that video next. I will see you there.